I would roll my eyes every time I got an event lead in my first years in sales. They were mostly unqualified, but marketing still assigned us these leads anyway, and we had to call every single one of them, else management would pull us aside for a chat. But event leads can actually be a gold mine, especially when selling to mid-market and enterprise accounts. You do need a plan, however, for how you're going to attract and capture good leads. And that's why Rita Vass is joining us today, to talk about generating leads at live events. Rita comes to us with 15 years of experience in sales and marketing combined. She's held multiple marketing leadership roles in the events and tech space. What she knows best is how a successful event strategy makes all the difference in your marketing mix. And today, you'll get to see what that event strategy is so you can capture more leads at your next event. Good ones. By the way, if you're new to the channel, I'm Victor, a full cycle account executive turned sales manager with 10 years of B2B sales experience. And on this channel, I cover topics from prospecting to closing and everything in between. Now let's jump into the interview. Hi Rita, thanks for being here today.
Hi, Victor. Thanks so much for having me.
Look, the question on everyone's mind is how do you do events right? Because as a sales rep, I know that a lot of us have scoffed at events, and anytime they get an event lead, they would rather just chuck it out the window. Then again, I've seen events work where we have a lot of high quality leads, especially in the enterprise segment. So that makes me wonder that there is a right and wrong way of doing events. Based on your experience, what type of companies should consider events in the first place?
Okay. Well, I do think that there's such a, a vast array of different events that you can go to that in general, of course, I'm a little bit biased because I do love events. I do love event marketing. And I think when done right, it's a perfect touch point or a perfect marketing channel in your marketing mix as a whole. Um, there's so many positives and benefits to going to live events, just to name a few. It boosts your brand awareness. It's the perfect one-to-one interaction platform. It has a positive perception on your brand. And last but not least, you can really generate good leads when done right. So when I think about it this way, my ultimate, kind of advice or things I would consider as a company, whether or not to go to live events, is really to find that particular event that fits your brand and your goals and your KPIs. And what is it that you really want to get out of it? You can look at, for instance, trade shows, which is like the massive events where you get a lot of delegates, a lot of sponsors. You get great content, but it's really massive. But then when you look at a different event, for instance, which is like a VIP, small niche, you only have decision makers there. It's more compact. You can think about that, for instance, or you've got the thought leadership seminars where you get a lot of content, in particular, less sponsors, very focused approach. And we could go on and on. So I do think when you're thinking of should we go to events, where will we get the best leads? You really need to make sure that you align your goals, KPIs, as mentioned, and just where in particular you'll find your ICP.
That's interesting that you say that, because you're talking about events in terms of positioning, which I mean, it makes sense. So how do you decide as a company on which event is the right fit for you?
Yeah, I mean it's really tricky, let's be honest, because you need to look at so many different bits and pieces. But um in all effectiveness, when you're looking at the return on investment for an event, you kind of need to make sure that everything is aligned. You need to consider, is event my ideal client? How much does it cost to participate? Whether the team has time to put it together? How many leads will be gathered? Is the event super far away, or is it in the region that I want to focus on? Um, then is it a co-sponsored event? Are we looking at working with partners at this event? So there's so many different bits and pieces that you kind of need to look at first to make sure that you do get that return on investment.
While we're at the topic of cost, these events cost us a shiny penny, especially when you're sponsoring them. So I like that you've outlined that you need a plan before you jump into events, but how is it that you can actually stack the odds in your favor so these events do have that ROI that you spoke of?
Yeah. Ultimately, when, for instance, from my past experience, when we were building out our event pipeline, what we really looked at is whether these particular events are going to be either for brand awareness, is it going to be for hiring purposes, or is it going to be lead generating? And when we were looking at lead generating events, as we spoke about it before, Victor, that was like our main goal, our main purpose. And the way we worked at it is we built a really strong before, during, and after kind of process for all of our events. And those all had to align with what are the activities that we're going to be doing on site? How are we going to be following up with leads? What are the nurture emails going to look like? Even before the event, are we going to be looking at doing, let's say, a specific landing page where people can come and pre-book meetings so that on site we're going to already have great conversations? Are we going to be doing an exciting boosting, the floor kind of element and experience? Are we going to be having special swag on site? What is it that we're going to do to make sure that we get that foot traffic to our booth and make sure that we actually talk to the right people? What kind of content are we going to bring with us? What are we going to be doing, for instance, demos on site? Every little element. What are we going to be speaking about on stage if we had a speaking, for instance? So there's all of these little bits and pieces that come together as a whole to make sure that we can actually generate the leads that we want. And when we're talking about leads, we do need to distinguish between, are we only talking about getting a new prospect, or do we consider having a fantastic conversation with an existing client on board already as well? Those
Mhm.
kind of conversations are so important, because what we've realized is it can be an upsell opportunity. We can be also looking at a churn prevention conversation. So, leads in general, it depends on how you look at it, but all of these little things that I just mentioned add up to, is the event going to be successful? How is it going to be successful? And whether or not it's going to have the return on investment that we're looking for.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot of moving pieces you got there. Um, I would only assume that if you don't prepare, things can go wrong. Mistakes will be made. So, what are the common mistakes that you see teams making? The teams who don't sweat the preparation part, and what is one thing that you're doing to make sure that these events can be avoided?
Um, yeah, well, again, I think it's really important to look at event marketing or events in a holistic way. So we've got the approach where it is part of the grand marketing mix. It's a marketing channel. It's a touch point within the big strategy. So you need to make sure that you've got all your different other strategies aligned. So your socials on point, you've got great supporting content, you've got your email marketing ready, you've got all of those things. And then within just event marketing and that kind of prep, you're looking at what I mentioned, the before, the during, and after. So how do you avoid mistakes? You avoid them at every single stage um, when working the process. So let's say if we look at the before stage, preparation is key. You kind of prepare for making sure that you've got your team syncs. Everybody knows what they're doing on site. So for instance, when we used to do our sales enablement sessions, we had a session called working the floor. And working the floor is also about, how do you not have your whole entire team behind the desk or within your booth space, because there's nothing more intimidating when someone's trying to walk up to a booth and you've got that whole brigade standing there, and worst of all, chatting to one another. So little, this kind of pre-event preparation is going to be something that's going to help you avoid the during the event problems as
Yeah.
well. Or,
Yeah.
for instance, I remember we used to work together, McDermott. So we had an instance where we had all these great enablement sessions and the team was super prepared. And for some reason, we had a lot of people come to the booth, which was not for some reason, for every great reason that we prepared for, but for some particular reason we weren't able to qualify the right people in a short amount of time. So what we realized is everybody was taking too long to, speaking to individuals, let's say, that came up to the booth that were not particularly the top ICP that we wanted to speak to.
Yeah. So disqualify early, right?
Exactly. So what I'm trying to say is, you've got to pre-qualify the people that you're speaking to and try and kind of limit that interaction to 10-15 seconds. Hopefully your first question that you're addressing that person, or the second one, is going to give you um the right information, whether or not you want to continue speaking to them.
Yeah.
And this kind of also leads into the problem of swags. How are you going to use your swag? Every company that goes to these great trade shows, for instance, have really cool swag on hand, but again, how are you going to use that? You want to make sure that you kind of separate the ones where are, of higher value, let's say, and you want to make sure that when you have those great conversations, you still have higher quality, good swag on hand, giving them to the right kind of prospect
Right.
when it comes to
Right.
on-site kind of working.
And you mentioned, like in this past like 2 minutes, you mentioned three really important things that I'd like to highlight for everyone still listening. First of all, uh, the goal of these events, or like from a sales side, let's talk from a sales side, it's to get leads, and you want high quality leads, and a lot of them, hopefully. So uh, what anything that you have at the event should support lead generation. So swag that you mentioned, it's not, you're not doing it to be nice and give stuff away. Yes, you do want your brand out there, and every time someone checks um uh I don't know, some swag that you have on the desk, they'll ask about your company, and then, oh, like, where did you get this? I got this from the Bitrise booth. What's Bitrise? And then they start a conversation. But everything you do uh, is a tool, a means to an end, and that end is to capture high quality leads. And if you want to capture high quality leads and do a lot of them, the last thing you want, the second thing that you mentioned, is that you're not there to have meetings. Well, yeah, you can have separate meetings with if you're selling to enterprises and pre-book these meetings. But when someone is attracted to your booth, your goal isn't to have a 30-minute conversation. You're not going to do a platform overview demo for them on the spot. It's a capture and release. Pre-qualify, are they the right fit for your personas and ICP? Are they interested? What's their level of awareness? Capture all this information, and if it's a hot lead, have an account executive or BDR reach out to them directly to book a meeting while that interest is high, or uh, get to them after the event. But it's capture and release, not to keep hold of people, because your opportunity cost will be high. By that I mean, when you're talking to that person, you're not capturing 10, 15 other leads in the process. So I wanted to call that out.
Absolutely. And now that you were saying these things, I do think that one of the ways that you can really actually get a lot of people to your booth at the same time, and actually do what you were saying, go into a deeper on-site demonstration, like demo, for instance, is when you have pre-scheduled demo sightings at your booth. So one of the cool things that we used to do is we would advertise on site that our, let's say, our engineers or our product managers, they're all going to be here at the booth at this and this time during the breaks, and every 15 or 30 minutes we've got a live demo. So we would get the crowd around the booth, and a bunch of people, 10, 15, 20 people, would be listening at the same time to our live demo. And the other, kind of team members would then be able to have that kind of quick conversation afterwards, get their details, pre-book another meeting for a later time, or get a few additional questions answered that would qualify them after seeing that demo. Those leads
Love it.
were fantastic. Those leads were the strongest leads we would always get on site.
Yeah, I can absolutely support that. So create expectation, which generates create expectation that makes people come to your booth. Then generate interest during the demo, and then capture that interest in the form of leads, and then follow up with those leads. I have a really good story for this because I wanted to mention this because it's something that you almost always see at an event booth where a demo is involved. We were at one of the conferences in Denmark, and one of our engineers who was at the booth, he was always showing in-depth demos 10-15 minutes during the break. And when you have 15-minute breaks in between sessions, that's all you have to capture leads. If you're just demoing to one person, that was a wasted break time, right? So instead of holding these one-to-one demos, we said, okay, let's generate expectations that at every break we're doing a demo, and that
Mhm.
they should bring a friend with them. um, we decided to not do a platform demo, do micro demos aimed at the top 1 to 3 uh, impact areas that are key personas who are attending the event care about. If it was an above the line event, it was above the line messaging. It was If it was below the line, so aimed at individual contributors, that's the kind of feature and messaging that we would use. And 3 to 5 minute short burst demos where say break starts 5 minutes from the start of the break, we'll start the demo, so leaving plenty of time for people to grab something to eat, drink, come to our booth. They see a 5 minute demo, and we still have 5 minutes to capture that interest, and then they go back to the next talk. And this worked beautifully. We went from capturing one lead per break to capturing 20-30 leads in a 15-minute session. And that's what you want to see at an event. And this is what you also were mentioning, correct?
Exactly. Absolutely. Yes, very true. And I think it's also like what you were saying, another thing to avoid is, it again comes full circle, is using up your swag without qualifying the right individuals in time. Um, Kind of getting into a conversation super deep with one single person right from the get go. Um, and then having every single member of your team roaming around, behind, not even roaming around, but behind your booth. One of the things that I've seen, and I think that's something that I am always talking about when we're working the floor, is look around. Some of your team members can walk around a little bit, see the other sponsors, what are, whether there's a partnering opportunity there, you never know. Whether you bump into a current client and you want to have a deeper conversation with that client, and maybe if you're having, let's say a after hours kind of dinner with your team, you can invite them, you can have a deeper conversation there. um, or just, sometimes the best conversations happen when you also go and grab a coffee. So those little bits and pieces of really being enthusiastic and being involved. And then the last thing I want to mention with the being involved is, you don't want any of your team members sitting around and working on anything else during those days than the event itself. It's a fantastic opportunity. You want to really grab it by, by the horns, and bring back the leads that you can then work on, and build your pipeline.
Yeah, I'm fully with you there, and that goes back to preparation. So if the people, let's say I'm an account executive, I need to work these accounts. So if I get an email, I need someone to respond to that, and who's going to respond if not me? So that's when you see people on site at the events standing behind the booth and answering emails, but that's not what you want to do. So in preparation, you uh, have a buddy who fills in for that person when an important message comes in, just so they can make sure that their deals are still going on track. The customer, say on a POC, gets the type of support that they need, and while the people who actually represent the company at the event can maximize lead generation. But unless you prepare for this scenario as well, you're going to be left with people wanting to take a quick closing call at the event.
Mhm.
And I was guilty of that myself, but that's because we didn't prepare for that scenario. Um, but so far we've talked about how to attract leads. One of the things that you just mentioned is that don't sit around, like be proactive, go out to these people to find, to pre-qualify them, and if they are a fit for your ICP and personas, then capture them. But like, how do you capture them? Do you just write down their details on a note? Do you take a picture and then try to have AI mix and match? I'm being silly here, but
Yeah.
what are some good ways to speed up lead capture so you're not wasting your time and can actually capture 20-30 leads per person per break?
Yeah. Generally speaking, I think, most of these events already have scanning availability. So you can, everybody that's at an event has a lovely badge that has specific details about that person that you can go and scan. Now, either you go to, the larger the trade show or the conference, the more kind of scanners they'll provide. If the type of event you're going does not have that, then you can always kind of get a platform that you subscribe to, and then you've got it on your phone, and you're able to have your team kind of download that and go around and scan people's badges. Of course, you got to make sure that you are GDPR, you've got your GDPR consent. But all of these things are, again, preparation, but that's the preparation of the events team in advance.
Mhm.
um, just a little detail that came to mind here. It's a really good, I think it's a really good addition to have some sort of, a short form or a few kind of questions, again, qualifiers, that once you do scan someone, you do get that initial kind of 2 3 questions in that allow you to understand whether this person is in what category. Are they here for, to understand your brand a little bit? Are they here as a stronger prospect? Would they be open for a call or conversation afterwards? Or are they even a potential client, or I mean, or an existing client, or a potential partner? It is important, I think, within the first few minutes to understand those things. And it's always super valuable to have some sort of form, built into your app that you're using to scan the badges, because that's going to be really, really helpful afterwards, once again, for your sales team. You're at an event for 2 3 days, you're overwhelmed, you can't remember what you spoke about on day
Right.
one.
What last thing you want related to that is follow up with the lead who already gave you all the information at the event, and then say, "Oh, what made you come to our booth?" Like, you just
Exactly.
lost that lead right there, and
You
then
completely, absolutely, because you're basically probably the 100th person that's going to be reaching out to them. So you want to have notes on hand about the conversation, or about their problem that they were talking about, or an immediate solution, that they're looking for. Um, and that you can use in your follow up. Personalization of your follow up is going to be the key to kind of standing out from the rest of the sales salespeople on site. So yeah, that's
right.
definitely something that I would add as a really, really good way of capturing leads.
Right. Now, when I think of forms, immediately I have PTSD thinking of admin
Mhm.
and like sales reps. Like, who loves admin, right? But uh, it is a necessary evil. Otherwise, you won't be able to lead with that point of view when you're reaching out to that lead to convert them into a meeting. So, in your experience, what's the right balance between capturing information and being able to capture and release, so to not talk to the same people, not waste time on one person, but actually capture the information fast. Doesn't take more than 1 minute, whatever, and then you go on to the next person. What are some best practices to follow here?
Yeah. So there's two things here that I would want to talk about. One is I think, everyone's got the time for a few questions. Obviously, let's say when you scan a badge, you've already got their information. You got their name, their company, their job title, maybe their email address, maybe not. So you've already kind of established their basic info. The next thing you want to know is why are they here, and I think that's the most important question of all is, what are you looking for? Why did you come to the event? The moment they say we're looking for, a new product, we're looking for a new solution, we're looking for a new whatever, you've already established the fact that they're there to buy. And then you can have a deeper conversation, because then you can already go into a longer conversation. So I understand the release, kind of quickly talk and then release and then get new leads. But that's when I believe, and that's where we saw success, you do go into some follow-up conversation. Are you looking to buy in the next half a year? Is it the next year? What is it that you're currently using? What is your main pain point? And then have a little bit of a conversation on how we can solve your pain point right now. You basically ask them three super important qualifying questions that then you can work with later on. I know filling out forms or kind of making notes is a hassle, but that's a kind of important note taking that I don't think should be a problem for anyone on site. And then you can release them, give them a swag, maybe send them over to another colleague if they're interested in, let's say, a demo, or just, get them to join into a game that you might have at the stand. Really make an
Mhm.
impression and really have a lasting impression that once you do follow up after the event, they know who you are. You can refer back to, remember, we had that conversation. Remember, you even looked at a demo. Remember, you even played this game with, on site. This is what we had. So you really want to make sure that you stand out, because that person is there to buy and most probably had a very similar conversation with a lot of other companies on site. So that's uh that's kind of where my input and where my experience comes from, filling out form in that kind of ideal mix of don't ask too many, ask the right ones, and then kind of move on to the next person.
Yeah, no, I absolutely get that. And if for nothing else, you need it for lead scoring, lead
Yeah.
prioritization. Let's say on an event, you capture anywhere, depending on the event size, you can capture between 250 to a couple of thousand leads. Who are you going to prioritize, and
Yes.
who should actually make its way to sales? Who could be disqualified right off the bat, even though that they were captured, just to
Yes.
show that yes, we were working. Because that's another thing. We set targets for ourselves because sales reps want to compete. So we said, okay, we're going to create a leaderboard on who captured the most leads. But you don't just care about capturing the number of leads, but what quality of those leads are. So even though someone maybe captured 125 leads in a given day, which is like massive, we were fried after that. But out of that, there might be 50 that you don't want to reach out to because they weren't persona fit, but we did our job in qualifying them and not leaving any stones unturned. So yeah, I absolutely get that these questions are necessary for lead scoring, knowing how to follow up with these leads afterwards. um, which begs the question, what do you do with all these leads after the event? Uh, is it an understanding that they just get handed over to sales and then have at it, or uh, is there more to it?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on how your, marketing automation and sales automation is set up, really. I think what you need to look at is what are those specifics. So for instance, I'll give you an example. If you get 5 questions that, everybody kind of needs to answer on site, that's going to be then translated into, your CRM system, hopefully, if you have it set up that way, and it's going to immediately score those answers. So this is again preparation. is that form prepared? Is it automated? Is the scoring in place? And depending on what those results are, you're going to have, you know, a kind of nice top, middle, and bottom, almost top, middle, bottom funnel kind of leads that you got at the event. You're going to be able to prioritize based on, this person answered the following questions. This is how it's reflected in the CRM. This is how I see it. They're top priority. They need to be followed up ASAP. And then slowly, all of those kind of leads are then funneled into, the right channels, whether they need to be considered more of someone that needs to still be nurtured because they weren't really there, their answers didn't fit your scoring or weighting. Then they go into the nurture campaigns, whether they kind of did give a few answers that showed a lot of interest but not so much, then they kind of go into your drip campaigns. And the ones that are very, very high quality, that are top priority, they need to be immediately followed up with, by sales or by however your organization is set up, whether you've got BDRs that get event leads, whether it's the AE that gets those leads. It depends on, whether it's the same person that was at the event that needs to follow up or not. That's really up to kind of how you have your team set up in your processes. But following the SLA of what you've agreed on is just key to success, because you can prepare as much as possible if in the end you drop the ball.
Yeah, I completely get it. Especially, you've already lost a lot of time when let's say an event takes place. You need to capture the leads at the event, and then someone has to process those leads. And it's not like the same day you capture, they make it to their CRM. Although you can do it, and
Yeah.
we have done that at one of the companies that I worked at. And it worked beautifully. We had just one administrator we captured business cards really. We
Mhm.
didn't have scanners when I started doing sales, so we captured business cards, and then someone was sitting in a dark office all day in the booth, inputting these information into an Excel sheet basically, and then every day this Excel sheet was uploaded to the CRM, so the sales reps who weren't at the event, they could immediately get to these leads. And that worked beautifully because you don't want to waste 3 days, 5 days, a complete week until you follow up with those leads, because they will have already forgotten about you, right? But if, let's say, you don't have the capacity, you're a smaller company, you're capturing the leads after the 2-3 day event. You need a day to clean up this data and then upload it to your CRM. The last thing you want is for uh, either marketing or sales, the person responsible for that, to drop the ball on not starting a campaign or waiting until next week until they reach out to that lead. You want to do it ASAP, because as soon as the people forget about you, that's no longer a lead, no matter how hot it was at the time.
Yeah, and just on a note, for instance, you've got an event, let's say Monday, Tuesday, you reach out to top priority leads on Wednesday, because you do want to give them a breather to actually go from their dinners, or they finish up their days. And then you don't reach out, the next thing you know, they're at another event the week after.
I never even considered that, but that's good to know. Um, so since we're talking about what happens after the event, yes, lead routing, lead cleanup, and lead routing, it does matter. There's one more thing that worked beautifully for us, and I think it's worth considering for anyone who doesn't have local representation. Uh,
Oh.
this can be done before or after the event. We usually did it after. Um, we During the preparation phase, we set meetings 2 to 4 weeks upfront with customers and uh, potential customers who fit our ICP, who are local to the area where the event was. So if it was an existing customer, we would demo the roadmap, get feedback on how they're using the product currently. Because if you're not using your product or not, just like customers, you won't know what their pains are that they're trying to solve. You don't know what value you're actually solving for. So getting feedback on how they're using the product and what you have on your roadmap helps you prioritize how you can maximize the value to your target audience. This helps you be competitive. And with potential clients, you want to know, get competitor insights. How are they using the competition? How can you stand out? And maybe, just maybe, you find some pain points that they're facing in their current process, and that you can solve with your product, and then you're building pipeline. Because essentially, you're there at the event to build pipeline. You're just thinking of it in terms of event lead capture, but you can also build pipeline from local companies, as long as you make the time to visit. Like spend another week or two locally visiting these companies, visiting meetups, let's say. This worked out beautifully for us. We spent 2 weeks in Japan at a conference. We didn't just fly from Central Europe to Japan for a 2-3 day event and then leave. It doesn't make sense. That's a huge expenditure. Instead, we spent 2 weeks there. We worked 12-hour days, 4 people working 12-hour days, weekends and weekdays, 2-3 days at the event, and then split into 2 groups. We would visit 3-4 companies a day. So that means 6 to 8 companies visited per day, and then every day we would attend a meetup. So we didn't just create awareness in Tokyo at the event, but then 5-8 other meetups, plus visiting existing customers and companies that we wanted to get in, and they were very kind enough to have us on site. So what was the result of that? Next year, around 35% of my pipeline came from those companies that we visited. So it actually paid for itself handsomely. But yeah, that's what I would say to anyone. If you don't have local representation, consider spending some time to visit local companies while you're still there. Cool. Well, Rita, thanks for your time here. What I wanted to ask is, because we've covered a lot of topics here, what would, if there was only three things that you could take away from this discussion, what should they be?
Okay. Number one, I'd say strong alignment on KPIs, goals, budget, and team effort. That's like my basis. The second would be to follow the processes, and attribution is key so that you can see ROI on your events. And the third one, which is, it's kind of the notion of you're out of sight, then you're out of mind. So choosing a type of event, whether that is small, large, or for instance, what Victor was talking about, very regional customer visits alongside meetups and so on and so forth. Choose whatever works for you, but be on site so that you're, in mind. Yeah, that's really all I would say.
That's a really nice way to sum things up. Thanks, Rita. And for people who want to get in touch with you, maybe ask some questions about how to organize, orchestrate, and direct events, where should they reach out to you?
LinkedIn. They can find me on LinkedIn. You'll post my little LinkedIn link somewhere, and
I'll have it in the description.
So find me and write me.
Cool. Thanks, Rita, for being here. It was a lovely chat, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much, Victor.
If you enjoyed this video and are hungry for more, you'll love this next one right here. Don't forget to like and subscribe first, and then see you there.